trying to fuel the divide, you're going to get either rewarded for that or it's not going to matter because our elections aren't competitive anymore. And so we need to change those things so that, there's actually paths to kick our legislators out of office if they're screwing up. And right now, there really isn't a path like that. So yeah, you're absolutely right. And, what we have to do is change the incentives, in my view, with that. And trust is such a key part of that, that we have to be able to trust that our legislators are making the right calls. And right now, everybody kind of has the sense that they're listening to party leaders. I don't think it's fair to necessarily blame all of them. There's some of them that are in it for their own reasons and probably aren't great people, but I think most of them are just, the incentives in front of them are, if you want to get reelected, you toe the party line. And, that's what has to change. And with this past week, with Kyrsten Sinema leaving the Democratic Party, becoming independent, I hope to see more and more people doing that. I think, because she kind of joined Bernie Sanders and Angus King in essentially being an independent, but still caucusing with the Democrats. I would love to see a real independent caucus in Congress. And I think shedding that party label, Joe, as you were kind of talking about, having such a bad experience with parties in the past, I feel the same way with that. And I, just knee-jerk reaction, am going to be more open to someone who doesn't have a party label, someone who's independent, or, a minor party too. I feel the same. Like if I see a libertarian, my knee-jerk reaction is, oh, I trust you more than a Democrat or Republican, because I see that you're not kind of playing this game. And, that trust is what has to be rebuilt. And changing the incentives are what can do that in my mind.
You see, the antidote to the centrifugal forces is that moment when John McCain said in this campaign to that voter, Obama is not a Muslim. I'm sorry, lady, you're wrong. These are these moments of integrity, of not short-term gains, but believing in there is more which connects us, which divides us. And I think these moments ought to be cherished and made viral. I wish I could do that in a Nakamoto type situation where nobody knows me, but I would invent a viral moment where people invest in these sorts of integrity and trust building. I think that would be best, but we can do that in that party too. And I think that would be a force which heals a lot of the issues we face.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's so much that can be said for one individual, like making a choice to move towards integrity and instead of towards like more cynical forces. And I appreciate that you highlighted like one person who stood out to you as an example of like, hey, this person has character and they're going to stand up for that. And just there's a lot of interactions in politics where it comes down to like a handful of state level people. Like I remember in a former life, a few years ago, when I was more involved in the conservative movement, there was a time when a bunch of us were asked, hey, like go ahead and like we were doing a campaign, a phone calling campaign, and so we all had to like call and like kind of talk about how we thought they should vote or whatever. And I was part of this, and, I did the call or whatever, said, hey, I think, and it came down to one vote, right? So we were pressuring, and the side that we were pressuring for came out ahead, but it came down to one vote, I think in a body. This was a Republican party, a Texas Republican Party thing, not an actual legislature thing, but it came down to one vote, which person kind of won out in that contest in the Texas Republican Party. So it's just, individuals really do count, and especially if you're able to get more involved. If you've got a value that you feel like isn't being expressed in the political system, you can make that impact. I mean, I was talking to I sometimes meet with Ranked Choice Vote Texas, which is a group separate from the Ford Party, and we were meeting with an activist, and he said, sometimes the phone calls to legislators, come down to like 6 or 7 calls, to the right legislator on the right day gets something to pass, because these people really like to keep their jobs, right? They mess up the whole system with gerrymandering to keep their jobs, so they really like to keep their jobs. And even just a dozen, or even just 6 or 7 calls, it's not push them on an issue of guns or abortion. It's not going to push them on an issue that's that intense among their voters. But on a smaller issue, like one of the things ranked choice voting for Texas is trying to do right now is we're trying to get ranked choice voting more involved in how Texas counts ballots for military voters. Or another thing we're trying to do is right now in Texas, it's really hard to have ranked choice voting at the city level. Like Austin wants to have ranked choice voting, and Texas state law makes that really difficult for some reason. So we're trying to just unlock that and say, hey, if a city wants to have ranked choice voting, let them have ranked choice voting. Stuff like that is not going to, the politician is not going to have a vendetta against that. If we can just get the right number of calls, a dozen, maybe 24 people at the right day, they sit there and they're thinking, oh my gosh, these 24 people all called me at a pretty arbitrary time. Like, they seem to care about this a lot. Like, what I really don't want is for them all to like go home and start knocking on doors and having conversations with people and get me out of office, because I'd really like to keep my job. So we have to work in the system that we have, but you'd be surprised at the impact that even one person, signing that petition or making that phone call can have. One weekend where you stand on a street corner getting signatures, with activists, a group of maybe 5 people or something, you get, 50 or 75 signatures across a few hours as a team. Those 75 signatures can go really far. Just getting that contact information, getting people connected to Forward. Optimist, you asked to become a speaker. Go ahead and tell us what's on your mind.
Yeah, sure. I just want to applaud the Forward Party's message about you own your vote. I think there's a lot of discussion of that here. I really do like to think of the major political parties as Pepsi, not in the sense that the colas, which are similar, but they're both major companies that would be very happy for you to be very loyal to them. Like Coca-Cola wants you to wear a Coca-Cola t-shirt and to tell all your friends, I only drink Coca-Cola. But it's like, really, if Coca-Cola raises their price too high, I'm going to switch to Pepsi. Or if Pepsi lowers the quality too low, I'm going to switch to Coca-Cola. And if they're colluding with each other to make, to lower the quality or raise the price, jack up the price together, or whatever price fix, then I'm going to look for like RC Cola or something. I'm going to I don't even know who owns RC Cola, but I'm going to be looking for whatever kind of strikes that right balance of quality and cost effectiveness. So I want my government to run efficiently, but also to do good things. I want it to strike a balance, and I want to see push and pull. So, and I just think encouraging more people to think of them as companies that offer you a product or a service, and as a voter, think of yourself as a consumer. So, the Democratic Party wants you to wear the Democratic t-shirt and say, I'm a Democrat. Whereas it's like, even if you vote for all Democrats, why do you have to be a Democrat? If you're a voter, I mean, it's like if you work for the party, then sure, you're a Democrat. You work for them. That's your job. You're deep in there. But if you're a voter, you don't have to be a Democrat. So even if you're or a Republican, it goes both ways. If you vote, almost all Republicans, but you evaluate them on a candidate by candidate basis, and then maybe one of them's like, man, this guy's awful, I'm not going to vote for him. That to me is enough to be independent. So this idea of owning your vote, I'd actually love to see the Forward Party really hammer that message, and brainstorm. Maybe you guys are already doing this, but I'd love to see a whole campaign just around that concept. I'm not even, we're not even asking you to be a forwardist. If you're really all about it, then awesome, get the t-shirt. But at the end, we just want you to be independent, discerning voters. And even if you vote almost exclusively one party, just because that's after careful analysis, you end up picking more of one party than the other. It's that process, it's about that discerning process. I love the phrase own your vote. I'm just wondering, what other phrases could there be that really capture that concept, that could really, because it's one of those things when you come from one of the parties and you kind of realize this, you're like, it's empowering, it's awesome. And I want more people to have that. I think it's better, healthier for our democracy and for our country, for more people to think that way. And if I could entice people with that feeling of empowerment you get from being like, I own my vote. the party wants to own my vote, but they don't. And like, if I just go around saying I'm a Democrat, or if I go around just checking the D without even researching the candidates, you're just giving them your vote, and you don't have to do that. So it's such a cool thing. And yeah, I just want to applaud the Forward Party for that message, and just love to see it boosted.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that's a very powerful slogan. There's been like some discussions about, you know, what slogans are good to push. We've got like a design team, you know, art design team working on some of this stuff. And own your vote is one of the more popular ones. I'm a big fan of it. Some people, I think free your vote is another one we've considered. But own your vote, I completely agree with you. It has that punch to it of, you know, it's empowering. It's your vote. You could not vote if you want. You could write in a candidate. You could write independent. You know, you have that freedom. You have that right. And I think, you know, we've talked a bit about media too. I think so much of this comes back to media, where I really think we, you know, with the kind, not being like badgering or annoying, but like we should be the loudest voices in the room. We should be saying the things we're saying as publicly as possible, because I think most Americans are on the same page